grave. John Brown's body lies a-moldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a-moldering in the grave. His soul goes marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His soul goes marching on. The stars above in heaven now are looking kindly down. The stars above in heaven now are looking kindly down. The stars above in heaven now are looking kindly down on the grave of old John Brown. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His soul goes marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His soul goes marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His soul goes marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His soul goes marching on.
Le ciel est noir, mon ami, mais j'y vois clair et la pluie.
Der Regen wäscht uns von allen Sünden.
La vie est flamme, mon amour, et le vent souffle chaque jour.
Der Wind bläst, uns daran zu erinnern, dass wir uns lieben.
Les nuits sont longues, mon amante, comme une ivresse obsédante.
Diese Nächte sind ein paar Augenblicke der Ewigkeit.
Le long du fleuve, mon âme sœur, du haut des cimes aux profondeurs.
Der Wind bläst, uns daran zu erinnern, dass wir uns lieben. De mon âme à ton âme. De mon âme à ton âme. De mon âme à ton âme. De mon âme à ton âme.
Le ciel est noir.
Oh man, it's been a long time. And by a long time, I mean one day. Why didn't I stream yesterday? I didn't stream yesterday because I had too much shit to take care of. You know, I'm in the middle of taking care of some shit. Is that a good excuse? I don't know, but what is this shit here? Shit. What is this? What is this? What is this? Alright, it's good, okay? So, it feels like it's been forever, and I had promised I was going to stream every single day, and that turned out to be a lie. See, it wasn't a lie, it was actually more like a wrong prediction. And Muriel, thank you so much for the 50, man. I appreciate you so much. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate it a lot. I gotta add alerts to the waiting screen, because it's kind of not fair that you don't get the alert, right? You know, this is bothering me a lot. This is actually bothering me a fuck ton. It's actually seriously bothering me. It's actually seriously bothering me. I gotta get a fucking haircut. That's what I need. Alright, we're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. It's all good, okay? It's good. It's good. Guys, we have a lot to talk about today. And it's pretty topical that the stream title is about the CPUSA thing that's going on. And that's going to take up a huge bulk of the stream, obviously. But we have so much more to talk about when it comes to this infighting that I'm seeing within the community, specifically on Twitter. So again, I have to keep prefacing this and saying this shit. Ever since I fucking got banned from Twitter, it's been a fucking disaster. And it's not necessarily one person's fault. It's not necessarily a group of people's fault. The problem is that, believe it or not, 60% of what I do isn't streaming. 60% of what I do is keep the community together. That's like 60% of it, okay? And I used to be really annoyed about this burden because I thought, why should I have to fucking do this? Why can't people just not be puzzle pieces, if you catch my drift? But the truth is that if you're going to be managing a fucking community that has any kind of political goals whatsoever, you're going to have to be dealing with this fucking internal politics shit. And I've come to accept that and recognize that. But, you know, the problem is that I've been fucking banned from Twitter, so I have no way of micromanaging anything or signaling things in the right way. It's a fucking disaster. It's a fucking disaster. So we've got a lot to talk about by way of that, okay? And I don't know if I want to exactly start the stream off talking about that, or if I want to talk about something else first and kind of ease into it. But I might just do it right off the bat. But I don't want people to come later and be like, oh, wait, did you talk about the... See the problem, right? Any case, I haven't really been keeping up with a lot of news. But it's weird because it seems like the Twitter deal with Elon is actually going to come through. And if that deal comes through, I get my fucking Twitter back. So that's a great thing, isn't it? If that goes through, then I get my shit back. I get my Twitter back. So that's always great to hear. And that's always refreshing. But I still don't want to get my hopes up. But I'm pretty sure I get my shit back if that happens. Are we going back to UCLA? Okay, I know I saw the International Magazine thing. I don't know, actually. It is actually possible that I go to LA again soon to go to UCLA and collab with Zerka. And that's kind of in the works. That's not guaranteed. What we're talking about right now is getting like a month-long Airbnb maybe and splitting it. So we're sorting out the details. It's not guaranteed. Don't get your hopes up. But that is a strong possibility. And the reason it's a strong possibility is that this is not permanent, right? I've been fucking pretty much hopping places to stay, and I get it's disorienting for the community to see me in so many different places at once. But rest assured, there's going to be a more permanent setup that I'm going to have pretty soon. I can't promise you when, but it's coming. And that's pretty much what I've been dealing with a lot of the time, right? So yeah, Twitter's a fucking disaster. And not everyone is a master at knowing how to fucking bring communities together and shit. So I don't blame you. I don't blame you gorillas and you fucking infracels and all you fucking people for just coming at each other and having all this venom toward each other very publicly at a time when we're being attacked. And you'd think that me being off Twitter would ease in the attacks. It's only gotten worse. And that's because of the Vice News magazine. It's also because of we've been hitting the rounds in terms of publicity with the MAGA communism thing. That's not going anywhere. And then also, you know, other stuff as well. I mean, the Schiller Institute conference that we just did. I mean, we're really making rounds. And then the Jose Vega guy, heckled AOC. So now there's this huge specter of Larouche and the Larouche boogeyman that everyone's fucking talking about. So this is just really a bad time for people in the community to try and draw lines against the Larouche people and go after Larouche. It's a dangerous thing to do. And the timing is fucking horrible, first of all. But second of all, understand that when people attack Larouche, they're attacking infrared. And the reason that that's the case is because the left has already adopted the latest form of copium, which I'm actually going to address in a Substack. I'm actually going to write about this. According to which, Jackson Hinkle and infrared, because CPI is now gone, and because it's impossible for young men in their 20s, to actually create a new movement, this is all just Larouche. All of this is just Larouche. Infrared, it's just Larouche. It's all just Larouche. That's the conclusion they've drawn. That's the latest form of copium, psychological copium, that they've adopted in order to psychologically put their mind at ease as far as what the origins of this whole thing is. So instead of actually having to deal with us as this new and novel development, they're just going to pigeonhole us and say, okay, that's just Larouche. And there's like a unanimous consensus among the left as far as that conclusion is concerned. And I think a lot of this has to do with a few factors. A few people are to blame for this. So, obviously, the Pat Sock Dems are a huge culprit when it comes to this accusation. They kind of started it. And then the retard who picked up on it is fat, deformed, ugly fuck Donald Parkinson of Cosmonaut Magazine. Donald Fartkinson, this ugly, fat, deformed fuck, is the originator and the progenitor of the fucking Larouche meme. And the dots just connected to themselves together, like, spontaneously, because Donald Parkinson came and he was like, oh my god, we need to learn the lessons of Larouche. I think these guys are all Larouche. And then, what do you know? The paranoid mind sees that infrared is allied with the Schiller Institute. And we also have adopted a lot of the memes and policy memes, like the World Land Bridge and all that kind of stuff. So, like, oh my god, oh, holy shit, the conspiracy, the connection is there. See, I'm going to explain to you something about the most... It's a very telling sign of a primitive mind when connections for them enough are what establishes the conspiracy. So the only thing to establish a conspiracy is just connections alone. It's kind of similar to when people point out the Elon Musk picture with Ghislaine Maxwell. And I can't speak to how much Elon Musk is involved with all that stuff. I don't know. But that's not incriminating, okay? Yeah, these people are rich fucking people, and they're at a party together. It's not incriminating. It's just like when people share this photo of Dugan with David Duke or whatever. But it's also irrational, in our case especially, because where we stand with regard to the Schiller Institute isn't a secret. When you're going on Twitter and you're seeing infrared profile pictures interact positively with the Schiller Institute and some of LaRouche's ideas, that doesn't need to be explained in terms of a conspiracy, because where we stand in relation to them is very clear. We are Marxist-Leninists who are allied with the Schiller Institute. We're allied with them. We agree with them about a lot of things. We share similar enemies, and we're strategically allied. So I don't know why there has to be a conspiracy. Why does it have to be that we're controlled by them and that they created us just because we're connected to them? I mean, yeah, the connection is there, but why is a connection alone enough evidence for a conspiracy? That's what I can't fucking wrap my mind around. Why is just the fact that we don't make enemies of them evidence for some kind of conspiracy that according to which they fucking created us. You see how the stupid, primitive fucking mind works? Where, yeah, it's like a confirmation bias. Oh my god, there's a picture of Haas with Daniel Burke. Yeah, because I'm allied with Daniel Burke. So it's either I join in on the fucking... Thank you, marching orders.
There is a photo with Dugin and Zbigniew Brzezinski. Thus Dugin is an Atlanticist.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Thank you so much, marching orders. But what I can't fucking wrap my mind around is... So you're either going to adopt the establishment's consensus about Larouche and the mainstream media's consensus about Larouche and the left's consensus about Larouche, or you're going to be more friendly and open to Larouche, and in which case you are Larouche. Well, I have some news for you. The Communist Party of China is very much interested in Laroucheite ideas. The Schiller Institute has many allies in the Chinese government. Among Chinese scholarship, these ideas are very well discussed and respected and venerated. And the same is true for Russia. Glaziev, Sergei Glaziev, spoke at the Schiller Institute conference. He is tied to the Russian government. So all over the world, people have a very open-minded perspective toward the Schiller Institute. They haven't adopted this uniquely Atlanticist kind of perspective according to which, oh, LaRouche is a horrible, bad cult. It's more like a spirit of open dialogue and exchange of ideas rather than just writing them off completely because you don't agree with everything they have to say. And my basic question is, if the Chinese and the Russians are receiving the Schiller Institute in this way, why should we join the left in contrast to them? Why shouldn't we have the same approach and the same attitude? I don't get it. If we're here to cultivate a fucking broad popular front, and if we're here to be American communists or whatever the fuck you want to say, why wouldn't we have the same attitude as our international allies toward the Schiller Institute? I mean, why not? What makes this different? Why? Because they don't agree with us about fucking everything, right? And this actually speaks to probably the number one origin of bullshit conflicts that happen in this community. And it's basically what Dugin, another person who controls infrared, will basically distinguish as a logocentric perspective versus a perspective more oriented toward, he would call probably like primal chaos, a chaotic perspective. So chaos, all that means is that chaos is about the principle of inclusivity versus logos' principle of exclusion and identity on the basis of difference and distinction. The chaos-oriented perspective establishes an inclusive perspective according to which just because something is not actual doesn't mean it's not possible. Just because you don't agree with something or you don't share the identity with something doesn't mean it's not included within the whole. So from the chaotic perspective, discrete differences are part of a whole. So this is a very, and I'm just kind of throwing this out there to tell you why in China and in Russia, they don't have this fucking fanatical attitude like we have here in America and in Western countries. Because they have societies not grounded on the basis of the Western logos. It's grounded on the basis of some kind of specific form of chaos, some kind of sociological principle, rather than a logocentric principle. So in China, for example, they don't raise every distinction to the status of a primary contradiction. Mao Zedong established a distinction between primary and secondary contradictions. In Russia today, they have their own kind of perspective of the difference between, a point of severe, like, enemy of the state, enemy of the motherland, enemy of the country versus internal factional disagreements within the United Russia Party, for example, and among the Russian government.
Mandatory $20 because I cannot stay for the stream, but yeah. Leftoids forgot the science part of the immortal
Yeah.
science of Marxism-Leninism and are too afraid to find allies with new
Yeah,
perspectives.
I agree entirely. Thank you so much, Fern. I appreciate it so much. So you're dealing with this issue where it's like, from the more, I guess, Eastern perspective, there's a principle of inclusivity that reigns. They're not necessarily agreeing with everything the Schiller Institute has to say, but why not establish common dialogue on the basis of mutual respect? Why do you have to have this genocidal, exterminationist perspective, according to which, if there's one tainted thing that you disagree with people about, that taints everything and that makes them worthy of complete annihilation? That is fucking psychotic, okay? So because you disagree with someone about something, everything they have to say, just completely write them off. Fuck everything they have to say. That is just not the spirit of Marxism. That's not the spirit of what Marxism-Leninism is. That's the spirit of some kind of like fucking ultra-sectarian, fucking fanaticism that has its origins in the fucking Reformation in Western Europe. That's not a Marxist perspective. That is a fanatical perspective, which is thoroughly anti-Marxist. But it's part of a pattern, you see. And I find it insane how this is coming from the community. Because if you watch our video, what infrared is all about, if you watch that fucking video, we talk about why is the Western left sectarian? Why does it have this sectarian attitude where it draws lines and it draws distinctions on the basis of theories and ideologies rather than on the basis of some kind of like material distinction, some kind of material reality? And we talk about that and we go over it in a pretty in-depth way. And that's that's our founding critique of the Western left. So to see this behavior repeated in a new kind of way is just, I find it pretty disturbing.
Base.
Thank you, Super.
Jackson is going to the Young Republican Club event with a bunch of Republican Ivy League PMCs. Low Communist Party. Haha.
Again, this is the Western principle of logocentric exclusion at work. So the retard, and he is a retard, his name is Super Platonoman. He is mentally retarded. He's actually a fucking idiot. Actually a stupid person whose brain is deranged. And I'm going to explain to you their psychological makeup. According to them, if Jackson goes to a Young Republican Club, this taints the purity of the ideological line of communism. It's a taint. It's a stain. And it must be raised to the status of some kind of fucking primary contradiction, because it seems to be contradictory to some pure ideological line that Jackson never fucking endorsed in the first place, you fucking retard. And it's a stain in the purity of their fucking position. So the idea, it's just like how MAGA communism is a stain. How can you be a MAGA communist when they're anti-communist? A stain! How can you do this when Trump said this about socialism? A stain! See, this is how these fucking people think. They think like primitive, mentally retarded, fucking primitive. Like, they don't think in a adult, rational way. They have this fucking anal fixation. Thank you,
You
Alexander.
must loved your speech shared with my Sudanese friends. They loved it. We are creating a big tent populist party.
Thank you so much, Alexander. I appreciate you so much. And the psychological origins of this, it's really some kind of Freudian anal fixation that these people have going on. It's like every time you see these leftists talk and try and expose, defile, that it's all a sham, you can tell they have their cheeks clenched. You can tell they got their cheeks clenched. There's like a stick up their fucking ass or something when they fucking say this shit. Can these people like think about Tank when Tank came on? You don't believe in the labor aristocracy? I mean, his cheeks were clenched when he screamed that. That's not a guy who's at ease. That's not a guy who's relaxing his muscles. That's not a guy who's just sitting down talking like a normal fucking adult. These people, they have their shit clenched, okay? That's the truth. It's pure I'm a psychologist, officially PhD psychologist. It just makes sense, doesn't it? So, yeah, that's where it all comes from, okay? It's like, you need to fucking calm down and you're assuming way too many things, okay? If Jackson goes to the Young Republicans Club, so what? Thank you, Saudi Ruz. They appreciate
Does the sectarianism in the Anglo left have any relation to Maoist/SB dogmatism?
Yeah, Maoism proper, Western Maoism at least, is the ultimate form of this, obviously. Anyway, he said a bunch of PMC. So this is what he's doing. Because we have railed against the PMC, this is an impurity in our own position, supposedly. This is an inconsistency they've wrought out. They haven't addressed the question of whether Jackson is going to that club to bolster a PMC political position. He's just making some kind of assumption about the personal backgrounds of the attendees, of which I could probably say nothing. I mean, to be honest, they're probably not PMC. They're probably like rich or something. They're probably just like they're probably actual capitalists or something, right? But it's besides the point. Like, okay, so it's just like when people say, like, "Oh, Hayes, are you personally the industrial proletariat?" So that's this fucking, let's call it butthurt sectarianism. It's the butthurt Western sectarianism. And it's a very, very clear pathology, which I've been dealing with from the fucking beginning. It's just, I've been gone, I've been irregularly streaming for like a few weeks. And then I'm very disappointed to see the butthurt sectarianism reemerge in the community. As if we didn't fucking spend over a year doing struggle sessions against this shit, right? Okay, let's talk about the issue at hand, though. I want to talk about the actual issue at hand. Watch him say. What a fucking idiot. What a fucking dumbass. Alright. Now this is this donation's smart. I want you guys to read this donation. So, and it's so interesting how I can insult the shit out of someone and they're still gonna give me another $5. But this one's smart. Okay.
Instead of going
to a rich Ivy League Republican club, go to the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens with working class people. I mean, do you think before you type? Did that sound smart in your head when you typed that? Because I want you to actually take account of the implications of what you're saying. You're saying that Jackson should go to some random location in the Bronx, Brooklyns, or Queens and do what? And just shout things? What context is being established for him to interact with working class people in a politically significant way? Is there an event going on that all the working class people are going to be at? Is there like a working class gala going on of some kind of political position? Like, what a stupid fucking thing to say. You don't even want him to do that. You're just trying to make this like theoretical point that, oh my God, note the irony of him going to a rich Ivy League Republican club. You don't actually want him to go to the fucking Bronx and just, randomly harangue people on the fucking street about his fucking ideological views. You just want to make the point that there's a huge a seeming contrast or contradiction. By the way, there is no contradiction. You're just fucking stupid. I'm sorry, dude. You should feel like a fucking idiot. You should feel like a stupid fucking person. Like, did you think when you typed that? That's my question. I don't think you did. I don't think you thought about anything when you typed that. It's like when people are like, it's like people are like, oh, you want communism? Go move to fucking Cuba. Go move. Go move to some communist country. They don't actually want you to do that. They're just trying to make a point. So, yeah, but I want to actually talk about the topic of contention today. I want to actually talk about something serious. Thank you, Suez.
Not only he took an L in the chat, the Yankees just lost too. Smiley face.
Thank you, Suez. I appreciate you so much, man. Thank you. So yeah, that's just a stupid thing to say. But okay, so let's actually talk about the actual point of contention that I've been noticing. Okay? And this has gone beyond the community, and apparently this has caused quite a ruckus. And it's very inconvenient, by the way, because there's a fucking anti-Larouche witch hunt that's going on. Specifically, that's because of us. Larouche people are not being attacked just because of what they do. They're being attacked because this is becoming so prominent. Infrared is becoming very prominent in terms of its influence and in terms of its reach. Okay? Because of the MAGA communism thing specifically. That's making a really big dent, and it's making waves. And Larouche is being blamed for it. So when you join on the fucking anti-Larouche dogpiling, you have to understand what you're fucking doing. Like, the way they're coping about this new phenomena is saying it's a Larouche conspiracy. So this is not really the time to be jumping on the fucking anti-Larouche bandwagon. Because it's like a direct attack on us. If you couldn't tell. And by the way, you should never join in any dog piles with the left. How really unprincipled do you have to fucking be to join the left on anything? To join them on any dog pile. Like, that's just so, especially against an infrared member. It's just fucking stupid. It's unprincipled. Oh, does it make you feel good that so many of these leftists agree with you? That's not a group of people you want to associate with or engage in agreement with. Okay, so I want to actually talk about the topic today. And it's actually not only about Larouche. It's about a guy called Jehu. So, do you think feds are behind this? But yes, I think our enemies and feds are aggravating a fucking stupid conflict. And I'm going to explain why it's a stupid conflict. And I want this to be the be-all, end-all of this dumb dispute that's going on, okay? So there's a guy named Jehu. I don't know if you're familiar with him. And he runs a blog called The Real Movement, which myself, Haas, and the showrunners have been very influenced by over the years, right? We're not Jehuists necessarily. Thank you, Emila.
They can't even address any of Larouche's ideas. Also, I'm sick of random regards on Twitter infighting in public and giving our enemies ammunition.
Yeah, I agree. So Jehu is someone that's influenced the showrunners. We've been influenced by him to quite a significant degree, actually, over the years. And it's not really that we're like part of a cult, a Jehu cult, where like we just uncritically agree with everything he says. No, there's a lot we don't agree with him about. But we think he's introduced a new perspective that deserves more attention, right? Basically, right? It's kind of similar to Nick Land and Dugan and them. And it's that whole thing about his dispute with other Marxoid academics. And we basically side with him in all those disputes. And he's basically exposed an important contradiction within contemporary classical Marxism. So Jehu's a guy who, you know, we very much are in favor of. And most importantly, though, for whom we, the showrunners, possess a great deal of respect. The key word, respect, right? Now, apparently the Schiller people, or someone there, doesn't like Jehu. And they don't like Jehu, and I'm going to say maybe it's a misunderstanding, and this is what I'm going to talk about. They don't like Jehu because they don't like the slogan or the idea of free time and nothing else. They don't like this slogan, free time and nothing else. And there's a whole contradiction. It's a pretty deep theoretical contradiction kind of manifesting itself in the community for stupid reasons, actually, which is between one perspective, which is saying that we need to decrease work and, you know, eliminate work. Thank you, MJ.
Free time. We make a critique of it, that's
Yeah.
why we are Maoists. We make a critique of it in order to improve socialism. The next time it comes around and throws people like your A into a labor camp.
Yeah, thank you, MJ. So there's one perspective. So the community is really big on a lot of the Larouche policy proposals. The World Land Bridge and kind of infrastructure development, unleashing human creativity, unleashing the productive forces. And that has kind of, I guess, come into contradiction with another faction of the community, which says we need to actually do everything we can to curb work and shorten work and increase free time. And this is an obvious contradiction to the Larouche philosophy and the Schiller philosophy, according to which not any, loose free time, but actually unleashing the human labor potential and creativity is the aim, and that is the good. That's the aims. So there's this kind of conflict that one says, okay, let's just no new jobs. One says, let's have 1 billion new jobs, and the Jehu people are saying, no, we should have 0 jobs, right? And it's the most retarded fucking dispute I could possibly think of. And I'm going to establish why it's a stupid fucking conflict. Okay? We aren't just a list of positive pros. Yeah, I know we aren't. But who better makes, LaRouche's policy proposals represent a positive vision for what a society will do in the positive. Not just in terms of what it wants to destroy, but in the positive. In a way that's very much in line with what China's already doing. So that's why it has such a strong appeal within the community. It doesn't mean we agree with everything about Larouche's philosophy. It just means that, in contrast, Larouche's strongest point is policy. Now, in my humble opinion, this is just my opinion, our community is a platform that affords a range of differing opinions, including ones that contradict my own. But my humble opinion is that I don't think Larouche has a big strong point when it comes to building a mass movement or, understanding media theory or anything like that. Or even, when it comes to building a party. Or maybe I'm just knocking on an open door, who knows. But I do think LaRouche's strong points are policy. Not necessarily the methods proposed to arrive at the ability to implement those policies, but just policy itself. And that's because there's this underlying philosophy LaRouche has contrived of placing an emphasis in terms of his understanding of political economy on the physical economy, which is very important. And remember, the thing that distinguished LaRouche from the left at the time that his views were becoming incipient and distinguishing themselves from the left, from the Marxists of his day, was because the new left was starting to neglect the productive working class. It was starting to neglect the industrial working class. And LaRouche was basically not having any of this. He was saying, okay, the reason the working class is the significant in the first place is because it produces real tangible things. It's a real industrial working class. So it's not baristas and all this service sector bullshit. That's not a real physical economy. That's where LaRouche comes in. And that amounts to some of the significance of him, right? Why is it that his policy proposals so much resonate with infrared and the infrared community? It's because we share that perspective, which is also the Marxist-Leninist Mao Zedong thought, Deng Xiaoping thought perspective that is prevailing in China, which emphasizes the physical, real economy over the financial abstraction of and then there's so much political associations that correspond to that. Like, for example, the left is allied with the financial elites because they're promoting these bullshit jobs and these unproductive sectors and the marginalized groups at the expense of the productive working class. It's not about financial versus industrial capital, because capital as such has become entirely subsumed by finance. It's more about how there's a divergence between the actual physical needs of an economy in terms of reproducing ways of life and reproducing people with the current system that we have, which is the reign of capital. So it's a very clear, what you're witnessing there is a contradiction between the relations of production and the forces of production. And the Larouche people, very vaguely, have aligned themselves with a positive vision of the forces of production at the expense of the current relations, which the monopoly financial capitalists, alongside their left-wing prostitutes, are trying to preserve at the expense of the survival of humanity. Okay? So that is why we are so close to the Larouche people. It's not because we're controlled by them or that they created us. It's because this unique Marxism of infrared happens to have tread a not dissimilar path that Larouche himself tread in terms of the development of his own Marxism, which did lead him to abandon Marxism eventually, which is something we disagree with. But that primary contradiction of like the new left and its abandonment of the industrial working class is something that, we are on a similar point of agreement with them about. So it's very explicable why like we're so close to the Schiller Institute and why there's so much overlap between this community of infrared and Schiller. Okay? So I just want to emphasize that. And on the other hand, the free time movement, the Jehu people, who are also part of the community and will also always have a place within the community, by the way. I want more people to read Jehu, and he's criminally underrated even within the community. But I just don't want that to come at the expense of all of the good things we've adopted from the Schiller people. That's really where I'm trying to come from here. I just don't want one-sidedness. Okay? Anyway, what I'm actually getting at here is that, okay, as far as the conflict is concerned, so I really have to piss, okay? I really have to piss. I'm not going to apologize. I'm going to piss and I'm going to come back, and you're going to get the definitive breakdown. It's going to be like 1 minute. Why this is a stupid conflict, and what are the origins, so-called Larouchism, yada, yada, yada. Give me a sec. All right. So, because of this really stupid conflict that's going on, I'm gonna actually give you a rundown. It's something I've actually never done before. Kind of a primer on Jehu and his thinking. And it's actually pretty ironic and it's pretty strange when you have an educated perspective on this. Because from a historical perspective, from a political, socio-political perspective, if you want, a class perspective, Larouche's thinking and Jehu's thinking are somewhat similar in terms of their origins and their purport. So Larouche's origins concerned this divergence posed by the New Left with the classical industrial working class. Somehow, there was a divergence between the real physical economy and the price signals and the, value form that is meant to measure that economy. Well, Jehu's kind of dealing with the exact same thing. With the emergence of the service sector and the deindustrialization that has happened, has risen very superfluous, what they call bullshit jobs, stupid forms of labor. And Jehu has sought about to understand the nature of the current system within which we live. According to this, what implications does this have for Marxist theory of value? You know, the basic questions concerning Marxists of our time and of our day. What is the status of the labor theory of value in an age that seems to have radically diverged from the form of capitalism Marx was dealing with? Well, Jehu kind of eventually arrives at this pretty, bold insight. And I say bold because all he was brave in addition to being brilliant. He wasn't some kind of pussy or coward like the other Marxoids were, who were trying to, ignore this glaring fact that we're not living in the capitalism Marx described anymore. He begins with, what implications did the abandonment of the gold standard have when Marx very clearly outlines within Capital that the universal medium of exchange within capitalism must quantify a definite magnitude of labor. How can the labor theory of value be driving our economy? How can the law of value be in full operation when, in fact, the unit of currency itself, the medium of exchange, does not objectively quantify any given magnitude of value, which gold does? For Marx, gold is the universal medium of exchange from which all other kinds of currencies are merely derivative, and they can't escape the metallic barrier, basically, because gold represents a definite quantum of labor, the mining that is required to mine gold, for example. And that's why there's a universal value form, according to Marx. But with the abandonment of the gold standard and the manipulation of prices and currencies according to political ends and political goals, it seems like the law of value is no longer in operation, at least as Marx was describing it. So Jehu arrives at the conclusion that we're not living in capitalism anymore, we're rather living in fascism. That's how he puts it. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that characterization, but I do agree with the distinction he draws. We're not living in the capitalist mode of production. I just wouldn't call it fascism. I would say it represents a definitive rupture of a transition into a objectively socialist mode of production. And what I do think Jehu is correct about his characterization of fascism is just that I do think that the preservation of the capitalist superstructure, including the financial institutions that are a relic of this past, will in fact culminate in fascism. My difference is kind of semantic, I guess. I don't think there's a fascist mode of production. I think fascism is an emergency form of protecting the bourgeois institutions when the forces of production have outmoded them. And the mode of production has outmoded them. So it's a very small semantical difference. He calls the mode of production itself fascist. I rather say that the need for the preservation of the bourgeois capitalist institutions that have been outmoded by the mode of production itself to be preserved will require fascism, because fascism is political. So it's not really a meaningful distinction or disagreement. But Jehu arrives at that conclusion, and then he asks the question, okay, what is actually sustaining capital as such? Because capital, or at least the pursuit of profits, if you will, very much is still a reality, characterizing our mode of production or characterizing our economy. Despite that it's not rooted in the law of value proper, it seems to be rooted, according to Jehu, in the creation of superfluous, basically unnecessary from the perspective of the creation of value, but necessary from the perspective of the sustenance of the blood-sucking parasitical capitalist system, bullshit jobs, bullshit forms of labor which do not produce value, but which sustain the economic system of capital that we live in. And what that means is basically it's sustaining the kind of false profits that are being earned, which come at the expense of increases in value. So Jehu arrives at this idea mainly to distinguish himself from all the other Marxoids and leftists that he's dealing with. Is it's like all these other leftists just talk about how they want to reorganize the workplace or they want democratic socialism, but they're not dealing with the fact that capitalism today has acquired almost an exclusively institutional basis. Capitalism isn't today a thriving, vital mode of production. It's held together by this institutional tyranny, institutional jobs, institutional wage labor, an institutional wage labor system, the institutional capital itself, which is actually financial capital, right? Based in Wall Street in the city of London, as the Larouche people correctly describe. Jehu does not really dwell on the question of the physical economy because up until this point, it has not really been relevant for Marx's critique of political economy. Remember, Marx's critique of political economy was an unfinished project. He did not really get into the niceties and the details of an economy as like a physical thing as such. He did not necessarily get into that. All he did was expose the inherent contradictions of the capitalist system between the valorization of labor and labor itself, insofar, and this is what's important for Marx, insofar as labor exerts a negative tendency with regard to the value form. So Marx's understanding of labor is philosophically based on the transformation of nature and yada, yada, yada. But insofar as it concerned his understanding of the capitalist system, for Marx, labor exerts a purely negative tendency in relation to the value form, in the form of the falling rate of profit. That's how labor's existence asserts itself. So for Marx, labor's existence, so far as the capitalist is concerned, doesn't actually exert itself in the transformation of society and the building of infrastructure and industry. It manifests itself in the form of the falling rate of profit, which is a purely negative destruction of the value form. So at the outset, I have to emphasize something, and I fucking hope you idiots are paying attention. I have to emphasize something. What Larouche means and what Jehu mean by work or labor are two entirely different things. Larouche is concerning labor as a kind of unit of energy. He calls his understanding of the physical economy, his measurement of it, energy flux density. Larouche is concerned with a post-capitalist, he may not agree with this phrasing, a post-capitalist physical economy. He's concerned with questions of energy and technology and the labor as a productive, like in a very general and not historically relative sense, a physical sense, right? That's what Larouche and Larouche people are concerned with, as far as I know. But what Jehu is concerned with is not labor in any broad or general sense. What he means by work, and therefore free time, is the institutional form of wage labor. He's concerned with institutionalized labor, labor under the straitjacket of the value form or of capital, which is wage labor. So those are two entirely different things. That is what we need to establish here. Jehu has contrived a theory describing the collapse of the capitalist system. But that is only insofar as... Shut the fuck up, Siri, you stupid bitch. That is only insofar... I don't know how that... That is only insofar as the capitalist system has been reduced to a superstructure, a political dictatorship, fascism, as Jehu would call it, rather than an underlying vigorous and vital mode of production. So Jehu has a theory of how the capitalist mode of production is collapsing, or how it can collapse. And I'm going to get more into that later. Whereas Larouche, as far as I'm concerned, is dealing with a theory of a post-capitalist political economy, which is going to be measured in terms of energy, and it's going to be measured in terms of technology or something like that. So Larouche is post-capitalist. Jehu is still dealing with the realities of capitalism now. Larouche is kind of oriented toward the future, where the capitalist mode of production no longer has any political significance, and Jehu is dealing with the here and now. So that is a very important distinction at the outset to make. You're not talking about the same fucking things. Jehu is talking about wage labor, and the Larouche people are talking about labor as a physical force. Those are not the same thing. Conflating those two things commits the error that Marx talks about of reducing some confusing general economic laws with historically relative ones. So that needs to be emphasized. When Jehu talks about free time, he is not talking about any positive solutions. He's not telling us what free time looks like. He's not telling us, okay, this is how free time will be organized. No, that's going to be decided by a communist or socialist society. He's talking about time not spent being a fucking wage slave. So I think there's a place for Larouche there, because if Larouche is talking about something that's post-capitalist, and which inevitably is therefore beyond the wage labor system, there's room to ask the question, is Larouche describing free time? When Larouche talks about unleashing the productive forces or whatever, is that a form of free time? Well, however utopic and however unrealistic people might allege it is. It's an imagination of free time. Larouche is talking about free time. He's just talking about it in a positive sense.
Free our time to unleash our productive power.
Exactly. So Larouche is talking about free time. He's just not doing it. He's doing it in a positive manner. Now, whether you agree with his view of free time, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't necessarily. And I think where I disagree with Larouche as far as his conception of free time is that I think in many ways it still presupposes institutions and, economic forms that have already been condemned by virtue of what they've culminated into. And what I mean by that is that, for example, the reason I'm saying that the Larouche people are positioned against capitalism is because when they describe the dictatorship of Wall Street and the City of London, that is capitalism as far as our society is concerned. That is what capitalism actually became. That is what it is. That is what is there's a direct line of lineage between Marx and the system of political economy. the capitalist system he was describing in England, there's a direct line between that system and the dictatorship of financial capital that we now see today. So objectively speaking, the Larouche people are anti-capitalist. Objectively. Now, if they have a different definition of capitalism and they might say, okay, eventually I want to recreate a better version of capitalism, maybe they will say that. But as far as the objective capitalism that exists today, they are anti-capitalist and they are against the ruling class. That's an objective fact. Maybe we should discuss with Jehu and Logo. The thing is, I think there's just a misunderstanding here. And that's why I wanted to talk about. I just think it's a misunderstanding in a lot of ways. First of all, I know that tweet that Space Larouche made. I'm not here to say that tweet wasn't made. I don't agree with that at all, obviously. I think it was extremely unfair. I think it was extremely unjustifiable. And I think it was a mistake, and I think they agree it was a mistake. I'm not sure. The reason I think it's a mistake to say that is because I think it conflates... See, the quote tweets of the tweet are not just Jehu's people. It's a bunch of fucking leftoids. And the problem with that is that it's lumping Jehu in with those fucking Reddit anti-work people. Two different things. Jehu is concerned with a revolutionary strategy to collapse the institutions of contemporary capitalism. Anti-work people are a bunch of lazy, neat bums who just don't want to fucking work. Two different things. Jehu is not saying that free time isn't going to be spent exerting labor physically. He's not saying that. He's not saying anything about free time, and why would he? He started out from a Marxist political economy perspective of exposing these fucking fraudulent, fake Marxoid dumb fucks and exposing the internal contradictions of them. Jehu's not concerned with policy proposals of what socialism is going to look like or what communism is going to look like. He's not, okay? He doesn't know what it's going to look like. He's not concerned with that. Now, can we be concerned with that? We can. And that's because, according to me, we are already living in a socialist mode of production. So when we contrive policies and solutions and ideas like that, a minimal program, that is already presupposing the victory of the socialist mode of production that exists. That's why so much of our program is cleaning house with the bureaucracy and the bourgeois socialist state and completely collapsing it to its minimum of the Constitution. And then from there, we can rebuild. We can rebuild under a proletarian dictatorship. And our positive solutions will be things like massive infrastructure, a national bank, a lot of the things Larouche talks about. It's just not going to happen within the frame of the existing financial institutions, corporations, and established forms of capital. It's going to be more like the Chinese system where incipient forms of capital are going to be promoted among the people, from the soil of the people. The little guy is going to have a chance to build industries and, unleash their ability to build businesses and stuff at the expense of the established ones. But there's something I think both sides of the argument, and I'm knocking on an open door here, so I'm not trying to pigeonhole people or strawman them into a position they don't deserve to be strawmanned into. But there's also an element lacking here, which is mainly concerning the thing about land reform, right? I don't want to say both sides bad, but it kind of seems like both sides are presupposing that revolutions in the forces of production presuppose revolutions in institutional paradigmal revolutions in the institutions. This is what actually my theory is as far as how I propose K waves happen. Kontratiev waves. through land reform, which basically pulverizes the existing relationship between the state and the institutions with the unit of individual subject. Land reform basically broadens that and gives a broader spectrum of the people a piece of the pie of the state, for example. And this revolutionizes and overthrows. It's like the law of the gatekeepers. Institutions have a very limited relationship with the demos and the people, like, for example, the aristocracies of the ancient regime, the nobility. And then a land reform opens up the extent of the state's relationship to the people and sets it on a new basis, a fresh new ground, year zero. Okay? This is a necessary prerequisite, according to me. I think this, for me, is more fundamental than sloganeering for reduced hours of labor. But that's just me, okay? I do think it should be part of our program to slash the workday in half. But I think it's always going to be about land reform. The thing that's going to bring you to power, the thing that's going to create a mass movement of people who, once in the reins of power, can, in fact, slash hours of labor in half, is going to be land reform. And where I have agreement with Jehu is that, coupled with the equivalent of a land reform, which is an institutional revolution, year zero for the institutions, that corresponding with the reduction of labor hours will devastate the service industry in a way that won't have to be just political. We won't have to come down. We won't have to weaponize the state and just say, okay, we're shutting down the whole service industry by gunpoint. We could rather have a reduction in labor hours, which will economically render the service industry superfluous. But the goal is to smash the bureaucracy and more radically, fully eliminate the service industry entirely. Reduction in labor hours, which I think we can grind down to 1 hour. I'm a crazy fucking person, but think about it. We have bare bones industrial working class jobs for everyone. You don't have to work many hours a day because everyone's going to be working them. So something that represented maybe 20%, 100%, right? So you can, let's say you can reduce the working day to a fifth of what it currently is. Just because, think about it, like you can get rid of the bullshit jobs. Everyone gets to work productive jobs, even according to our own capacities now, the bare bones. And I think this will be a nationalized industry. I'm giving you a utopic revolutionary scenario that has a grain of truth to it as far as a real strategy. So the state nationalizes steel industries, mining industries, oil industries, whatever. And everyone works maybe a wage job of some kind, 1 hour a day in those industries, okay? That's year zero. And then with all of the free time that people have left over, they're not just going to be sitting around. A new economy will grow. One that is beyond wage labor, beyond the paradigm of wage labor, and beyond the paradigm of the capitalist system. And it will still have businesses and it will still have market forces, but it's not going to be dictated by the pure pursuit of profit. It's going to be like that more digital, attention-based economy. It's going to utilize the whole algorithmic economy and all that fresh, nice stuff, right? So that's where I'm coming from here. We basically reduce the entire capitalist economy to a nationalized form of bare bones state-owned enterprise industries where people work 1 hour a day, 2 hours a day, and the rest of their time is going to be spent doing what Larouche talks about, unleashing their fucking human potential. And free time is not arbitrary time, okay? Free time doesn't mean a bunch of individuals running around fucking, with their pants off. Like, you want to see, if in that case, free time is downtown Los Angeles, right? No, free time just means time not defined by wage labor. Will it be organized? Yes. Could it even be centralized? Yes, it's going to have to be if we're going to be a society. Is it going to be vast in scale in terms of its organization? Yes. How exactly will it work? I don't know. I think it's going to be kind of more of a begin decentralized and then culminate into something. I think this is a formula for actually revolutionizing state-owned enterprises. Like eventually, something that begins decentralized market becomes a monopoly, acquires such vastness and scale that it then becomes nationalized, and that becomes the primary form of labor, and the whole process is restarted. So the socialist mode of production will be a cyclical series of K-wave revolutions corresponding to revolutions in the forces of production. So that's my idea of merging Jehu and Larouche. And on that note, I have to take another piss. I had fucking 2 bottles of water just now, and this is a disaster. Give me a second. All right. Oh, man. Okay. So I really hope you guys have there's more to talk about when it comes to this as well. It's not just this that I'm telling you. There's way more to talk about when it comes to this issue. Not drawing a distinction between wage labor and labor in general is the problem here. Thank you, Deskis Dracula. Thank you so much, man. Also, there's more I want to say as well when it comes to... Thank you, Sean.
Dialectical materialism is all about breaking free from false dichotomies. Sadly, leftoids who think they're communists didn't seem to get the memo.
So, where can we, specifically when it concerns the economy, where should we learn from Larouche, like Sergei Glaziev and the Chinese Marxist scholars are currently doing? What is legitimate about Larouche's paradigmal revolution in his understanding of political economy, in contrast to all prior economic theories, which kind of makes Larouche unprecedented, right? I think believe it or not, one of the thinkers who I think was touching upon where Larouche arrived was none other than the French author Georges Bataille, if you can believe it. 2 people who are very different. But there's a book I can kind of recommend. It's called Bataille's Peak. And it's about energy and ecology in relation to Georges Bataille's thought. Well, in any case, something happens in the 1970s that marks a very clear distinction in the capitalist mode of production, if that mode of production even exists at that point in time, which I don't think. And I think the abruption is the socialist mode of production proper. So Larouche will say things, and Larouche people will say things like, we disagree with the Marxists because the Marxists are still operating according to a paradigm of a labor theory of value. And they say, in contrast, why speak of labor when the true theory of value is about energy? So they have more of an energy theory of value. Energy is more important. And are they wrong? No. I mean, in a way, they're not wrong, right? But I'm going to explain why the labor theory of value is still legitimate. But on this specific point, you have to hear them out. Labor is only significant, as far as they're concerned, because it's a form of energy. So energy is what really matters. So in an interesting way, it's kind of a neo-physiocratism, in a sense. It's concerning the physical economy, the physical reproduction of the economy. Specifically from the perspective of replacing labor, which was the subject of classical political economy, with energy, which is the subject of our current political economy, if you will, our postmodern political economy. Now, is this unreasonable? No. You guys ever heard of the petrodollar? The dollar is literally sustained by the price of oil. Energy drives the world. Almost every form of currency, and specifically goods and services, is proxied by oil. The price of oil determines all of that. If the price of oil goes down, so does the price of food. If it goes up, so does the price of food. Oil is a proxy for almost every aspect of our economy. Energy. So there's something very legitimate about that shift in orientation. And the labor theory of value should be profoundly re-examined in light of this paradigmal revolution, which goes from a theory of political economy based in discrete units of input to a paradigm of the economy that concerns the general fluxes. So, okay, in classical political economy, they were concerned with inputs, units of labor being inputted, right? In our postmodern socialist economies, we're more concerned with, is the tap on or is the tap off? There's a tap. If you turn the tap on, there's a flux, there's a stream of energy, there's a stream of economic power, right? And if you turn it off, it's all over. Whereas in classical political economy, instead of a general stream and instead of a flux, you're dealing with discrete units of work and the exertion of work. And actually, the significance of work within the framework of classical political economy is actually about thermodynamics. It's anticipating thermodynamics, but it's more about how the fucking steam engine works. It's a mechanical paradigm. So our paradigms of political economy are historically relative according to the specific mode of production or the specific threshold of the forces of production or the specific K-wave cycle or whatever you want to call it. Thank you so much, Blackback. Appreciate you, man.
Labor is just another way of saying energy put to work.
Well, I disagree with that. Yeah, crypto is determined by oil. It's because it's electricity, right? So there's something there. There's something really big there. Again, our paradigms of understanding political economy are historically relative to the scientific paradigms dominating the current forces of production. Marx's political economy was presupposing the categories of very primitive thermodynamics and the steam engine. Now we're dealing with a different paradigm, which is beyond that, which has moved beyond that. Now, if you want the real pill, as far as this is concerned, the paradigm I want to anticipate, not just for political economy, but for politics and the theory of state, is one pertaining to modern physics, nuclear energy, fusion energy. That's where the real money is, as far as I'm concerned. And actually, this new significance of oil and fossil fuels, quote unquote, is just a kind of subset of this new modern physical paradigm, whose furthest, what the steam engine was in Marx's time, we are now dealing with a nuclear age in our time. Now, that's something that's going to be hard to wrap your head around, because it presupposes a very advanced command of dialectics, which that's why I'm not going to outline it on this stream. It'll be too confusing and likely too overwhelming for people. So this is why there's a legitimacy to what Larouche is dealing with. But first of all, in defense of Marxism, or the old Marxists, I should say, who have not yet updated themselves and updated the theory of value to the current economy we have, and this includes Jehu, work, as it's a category within Marxism, is not necessarily metaphysical. Ultimately, it is metaphysical in some sense. By metaphysical, I just mean like out there, right? Dealing with the physical world. But it's principally a kind of social category. Work for Marxism is defined negatively in relation to, for example, capital and wage labor. Work, that's why people get away with this idiotic claim that baristas are proletarians engaged in the work that Marx was talking about. Because from a seemingly formal perspective, they are engaged in wage labor. They're paid for a wage. Even if you're paid to put your thumb in your ass and spin around in a circle all day in a spinny chair, according to the Marxoids, that is a form of wage labor. Now, technically speaking, from a strictly formalistic perspective, they're right. Because Marxism, within its limited scope, does not concern itself with a kind of like metaphysics of labor. Well, what labor is actually productive? And what labor actually is the labor proper? Now, just because Marx doesn't really flesh this out, and how could he have? He couldn't have. He didn't live long enough to see the changes we see today. Doesn't mean Marx had nothing to say about that. It's in Marx's early philosophical manuscripts and his early writings, and even in the beginning pages of Capital, that Marx does very clearly define the significance of labor. And the way Marx defines the significance of labor is exactly the same as Larouche's. Why? Because I'm pretty sure Larouche got his from Marx. And it's the whole reason why Larouche broke with the New Left, because of this significance of early philosophical Marx's understanding of the significance of labor, which did concern the threshold defining humanity's relation to nature. The transformation of nature.
Base.
Thank you so much, Johnny.
CIA agents are working class because they have to work for a wage. _glow.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Johnny. Now, wage labor. Wage labor is. Labor, as far as Marx is concerned, first of all, is social. Marx does not see labor as the sum total of individual actions exerted by individual human beings. Marx sees labor as the general means by which humanity in a given society reproduces its own existence. For Marx, that is labor. The means by which they reproduce their own existence by entering into some kind of intercourse, productive intercourse with nature. And for Marx, that is labor. So labor is social. Labor is something non-individual. It's rather general and societal. And it concerns the threshold by which humanity reproduces its existence in relation to nature. Okay? And that reproduction is itself productive for dialectical reasons. So as far as Marx is concerned, that's labor. Okay? Now, in the beginning, this is where all the confusion comes from. Because in the beginning volumes of Capital, in the beginning chapters, in the beginning volume of Capital, Marx is playing ball with the theoreticians of classical political economy in his understanding of labor as actually an individual thing. So for Marx, the site at which value is created, this is not what he's saying, he's just presupposing what the classical political economists had already been saying. The site of the creation of value concerns itself at the level of the discrete individual inputs of production the individual worker exerts. So value is derived from paying one worker, let's say, a certain wage, and when it's like what BreadTube tells you about exploitation and the theory of value. You pay a worker to do something, and this produces an excess. Their specific form of labor produces some kind of excess, which manifests itself in the form of profit and therefore surplus value. And that's how the process of exploitation of labor happens at the level of the individual form of labor that is being engaged in by the worker. Like, the wage exchanges for a labor which manifests itself in the form of profit. And that's where the creation of surplus value is happening. Scudworth, you're saying no, make a fucking argument then. And if you are putting words in my mouth and assuming I'm saying something I didn't just fucking say, I will fucking ban you. Because this is very basic shit. Now the problem arises in the third volume of Marx's Capital. In the third volume of Marx's Capital, Marx discovers that the rate of profit is uniform. There's a uniform rate of profit. If there is a uniform rate of profit in all of society, then profit and value is not actually created at the level of individual labor. It's created at the aggregate level of society as a whole, as a socius, as one universal socius. And therefore, for Marx, the temporal logic of retrocausality introduces itself. Because magically, this is the mystery, right? Instead of individual inputs of labor producing profit, whatever, or value, the excess is only created at an aggregate level. And the aggregate retrocausally establishes its own premises in individual labor. That is the ultimate mystery of Marx. And as a matter of fact, this is what the transformation problem is actually all about. The so-called transformation problem. But the whole mystery of the transformation problem is that people don't realize Marx was trying to build up from the premises of classical political economy, which are about discrete units of production, drawing from the thermodynamic paradigm of the steam engine, to a more electric paradigm, right? Which is dealing with something that is universally social and at the aggregate, which therefore has to deal with all the conundrums of modern physics and electromagnetism, which, coincidentally, Engels was extremely interested in at the time. And Engels viewed the discoveries of electromagnetism, which was dealing more with waves and spectrums rather than discrete billiard-like particles, like billiard balls that Newton was dealing with. Engels was anticipating this as, yes, this is the vindication of dialectical materialism. So the bad rap that Marx gets has to do with what he was beginning with, which was just English classical political economy. But the entire odyssey of Capital, from volume 1 to 3, is Marx slowly breaking out of this paradigm and introducing something entirely new. And this is specifically clear when he deals with the question of the average rate of profit of society as a whole, and how Marx deals with that question. And the way Marx deals with that question is that the creation of value can only be understood retrocausally or retrochronically. Instead of one type of, like, the labor that is actually productive is revealed after the fact, not before. So there's that whole significance of labor for Marx. And I think this specifically approximates and anticipates a physical understanding of the economy, because it's approximating the kind of Kondratiev paradigm, paradigmal view, according to which the significance of labor, which is social, is defined by the threshold of the development of the forces of production. And that's also why, it's interesting, because in Anti-Düring, when Engels is outlining Marx's theory of skilled labor versus unskilled labor, you also see the retrocausal dialectical logic at play. For Engels, skilled labor merely compounds unskilled labor. And if that's true, then unskilled labor is the measure of value. Unskilled labor is what's raw and vital, right? It's unskilled labor that's raw and vital. And skilled labor just compounds that. Skilled labor is just derivative of that. Now, what defines the least quantum threshold of unskilled labor? It's obviously something historically relative, but it's also something that's directly defined by the threshold of the productive forces and the Kondratiev K paradigm. So, for example, a given revolution in the forces of production, new technology that's sweeping all of society, whether it's the steam engine or whether it's electricity or something, I don't know. New types of factories or whatever, changes a certain threshold between, let's say, a relative, average, uneducated, blank slate person, a unit of the socius, and the forces of production. So their labor is augmented and transformed by this Kondratiev paradigm, redefining what it means for there to be unskilled labor. Let me put it in words that are probably, I know this sounds like a bunch of word salad. I'm just going to make it simple for you. So unskilled labor in caveman times is just when you run around like a retard and you just start hitting people and you have nothing to do. You're throwing rocks at the wall. Human beings, genetically, whatever, haven't changed since caveman times, supposedly. So it's still the same type of human being. But the unskilled labor in caveman times is just a guy running around naked being retarded. But unskilled labor in a modern society is quite different. You could have no education, and you can have a moderately average upbringing in terms of your competency, and you could go to the factory and you can follow the commands dictated to you by your workplace. You can just put things together in very minimal, bare bones, unskilled labor. So the tabula rasa, unskilled labor, is historically relative, and it's defined by the forces of production. And fascinatingly, for Marx and Engels, that unskilled labor is what defines social, universal labor in general. It's the average, normal amount of skill and the average person will have when confronted with the general forces of production. So there's two generalities. The generality of the forces of production, the average way in which human beings deal with nature, and then the generality of labor, the universality of labor. And the universality of labor is defined by this threshold of the forces of production. So that is what is fascinating within Marx that's often neglected. The paradigmal aspect of the K waves, the Kondratiev waves, And then what I introduce and throw into the ring is land reform. Because for me, land reform is what resets this economic socius and which creates the institutional fertile soil for a revolution in the forces of production, which can reset the law of value and reset the falling rate of profit to create a new threshold by which value can be created. Because here's the thing. It's not just the forces of production on the one hand and the tabula rasa human individual on the other hand. This is also mediated by institutions. These institutions are the institutions of the state, politics, and civil society. These institutions also undergo paradigmal revolutions in terms of how they relate to the organization of the individual, the administration and organization of the individual. In the Fordist society, so for example, there's something called Fordist society, right? The assembly lines of the Ford factories. And then the theories corresponding to Fordism, like Taylorism, which tried to regulate the motion of the human body in a certain way to maximize efficiencies of production. These are what you would call K-wave paradigms, right? And the land reform that corresponded to the emergence of Fordism took some kind of form of, each family has a white picket fence house and a car. And this land reform, in theory, at least under FDR, maybe what happened after changed that, should have reset the process of the creation of value. Now, the interesting thing is that this land reform happened, the FDR, whatever, New Deal, 50s, picket fence, whatever, revolution. And yet, this was something that happened at the expense of capitalism, because the capitalist mode of production collapsed in the 1930s in the Great Depression. And yet somehow our economies have kept on growing and kept on expanding, and we still have economies. So how do you explain that? Well, that's where people like Larouche come in, seeking new economic paradigms beyond classical political economy, which could go no farther than the 1930s, which emphasize things like energy and physical aspect. But what I don't think Larouche paid enough attention to was the fact that he was attempting to pose a political economy, a theory of political economy, in the age of socialism. I'm missing a lot of things. I'm missing the aspect of credit and finance and its significance there. But the land reform of the New Deal was actually about a land reform of credit. It created new institutions that directed credit in a way that was accessible to the average person, and which therefore gave the average American a chance at the American dream to start their own businesses. And it is somewhat true that this did work. Older forms of capital probably didn't disappear, but there was, for example, what is that toy company? The toy company that, like the biggest one in the world right now in America, started in someone's garage in like the fucking 1940s. It had a shot at success because there was a revolution in the credit system that made the distribution of credit to the average person more accessible. Mattel, yeah, it's Mattel. Now, interestingly enough, I'm going all over the place. The Iranian Revolution was quite similar, actually. In the Iranian Revolution, the Shah actually did attempt a literal land reform. It was called the White Revolution, where he wanted to take land from some of the noblemen that were opposed to him, or not as loyal to him, and redistribute it to Persian peasants. So why did the Shah still get overthrown? Well, because a lot of people neglect this fact. What they call Khomeini a reactionary or something, because Khomeini opposed the White Revolution. Actually, he opposed this redistribution of land. And actually, something similar happened in Afghanistan, where the communists did try to do something like the White Revolution, and lo and behold, it was opposed by the majority of the Afghan people because it was a way of undercutting the kind of deeply embedded social relations of the Islamic countryside, which is different from Western Europe. So what was the economic significance of the Iranian Revolution then? Well, follow the credit. It was about credit. The average Iranian in this process of modernization couldn't get loans out to start their own businesses. They couldn't get loans out to, get a house or start their own kind of way of life. That was reserved for those who were the elite that was loyal to the Shah's regime. Banks would not give the ordinary average Iranians any credit. Only if you lived in Tehran and you're part of the elite do you have access to that credit. So the land reform that happened under Khomeini, in addition to the real land reform that was discussed and proposed in the 80s in the actual Iranian government, like a real land reform, but the main one was how it universalized the system of the distribution of credit and the taking out of loans to be more accessible to the average Iranian. And that was experienced as the revolutionary equivalent, the historical equivalent to the revolutionary land reforms that you see across history. Now, what's interesting about that is that it's very postmodern. Historically, we think of land reform, we're going to give you land. Well, land is something that's past-oriented. It's a given plot of land. It's a arable soil, and it's from the past. But credit is about potentiality. It's future-oriented. I'm going to give you a certain amount of credit so that you have the potential to do something that doesn't yet exist. Land exists in the past, right? Credit is about the future. It's about directing the future. It's about steering the future. So that's why I say the paradigm we must presuppose now is modern physics and quantum physics and nuclear energy and stuff, because that's all about this kind of contradiction between potentiality and actuality, and the fact that potentiality is itself some kind of real force and real presence in the physical world. Things that are potentially possible, even if they don't become actual, still exert an effect on the physical world, according to the paradigm of modern physics. So this should open up an understanding of credit. There's a guy who's associated with those urbanomic Nick Land people. I think his name is Suhail Malik, and he penned a long text, which I can easily recommend, called An Ontology of Finance. And I think he makes these interesting connections between modern physics and the world of complicated financial abstractions, which are by no means reducible to the, City of London and Wall Street parasitism. China has a financial system which deals with all of the complexities of modern finance. Those are not just nothing. They relate to something real, which is about, again, potentiality, future-oriented, what directs production, what is the purpose of production, right? Rev. Can K-waves from the Ford era be compared to modern times if we presuppose the rate of profit is zero since 1971 and the delinking of gold for money?
Based.
Thank you,
The
Flame Love.
movement from discrete to continuous logic in Marx is something I've never considered, but you covered it beautifully. Time to read Capital. Tell Caleb I'm sorry for not reading the 18th Brumiere.
Thank you, Flaming Leg. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. That's the thing, Rev. I don't have a cyclical theory of K waves like most people do. I have an eschatological theory of K waves. And my eschatological theory of K waves is basically that K waves don't reset the capitalist mode of production. They deepen the process by which the capitalist mode of production transitions into the socialist one. And then beyond that, it's basically a dialectical cycle that will exist even in communism. So I don't agree that K waves reset the rate of profit or anything. I think they do something else. I think K waves represent this process of this runaway economic transformation into a completely different mode of production and a completely different type of economy. Hey guys, I'm going to take another piss, and then I'm going to grab a burger, because I have a burger that I need to eat. I have not eaten all day. I'm going to eat it on stream in front of all of you. And then I'm going to cover the CPUSA stuff. So give me a second, okay? You know.
Good morning, Revolution. Good morning, Revolution.
Holy fuck. They use so much infrared clips. And Emirio. Holy shit, thank you, man. Appreciate it a lot. Jesus, holy fuck. Mmm. This is so good. You guys want to know the restaurant this is from? Oh. I'm going to talk about Kantbot in a second. I have not eaten all day. Holy fuck. Hmm. Hmm. Oh, you didn't know I had another one? And I promise this is my last one. You thought I'm eating one burger today? You really thought that? Oh my god. Oh my god. Hmm. Alright, this is my last one. And then I'm going to talk about Kantbot.
Shout out to all the real ones on the CPUSA grind.
Oh, thank you, whoever that is. I just wish I could have seen it. Tell me who it was, chat. Alright. First of all, I want my own critique of Kantbot to be my own, which means I don't want you bots dogpiling him. We're turning it into an anti-Kantbot movement. But I still feel like I have the right to critique him. It was 50? Dark, thank you so much, man. What the fuck? He dropped a 50? And oh shit, I have to do the Patreon Q&A. I'm such a fucking scumbag. We didn't even do any this month. Fuck me. Forgot about that. Alright, we'll do it tomorrow. It's okay. Darg with the 50. Thank you, man. Holy shit. Thank you so much, man. Alright, anyway. So I think I have a right to critique Kantbot. And I'm gonna be honest, okay? I think Kantbot's being very unprincipled. I don't think he's acting according to any kind of independent use of thought. It seems very evident to me that he's just rolling with some imagined crowd that he seems to have faith in irrationally. I think Kantbot is just under this dogmatic assumption that there must be a grain of truth in what all of the leftists think. He can't quite pinpoint what that is or establish it, but just his reflexes point in the direction of, you can't really go against the left. He says, I'm the authentic left, sure, but at the end of the day, he wants to be the rational kernel of the Twitter mob of leftists. And I'm just fundamentally convinced of that. I think he's being unprincipled, and I've tried to reach out to him privately multiple times. I just think he's been super uncharitable and extremely unfair. In a way that he's not willing to, like, even try to defend or rationally justify. He's kind of more submitting to this, like, cliquey kind of like, oh, I'm part of this group. Oh, you're part of that group. It's like, why though? Why don't you actually just lay out your criticisms and make them bare and actually, you know, put them on the line in some kind of way? So he doesn't want to hear us out whatsoever. He's extremely dismissive, which to me is just so disappointing because why, right? But I know why, because he just wants to be friends with leftists. Now, because I'm an expert at like because I understand how everyone disappoints me. Human beings generally don't think for themselves. They're part of herds. So Kantbot is tangentially related to the Donald Parkinson herd, which he's defected to because a lot of his like long-standing Twitter friends are going in that direction. And it's a herd, right? And he's just going with the herd, basically. So Kantbot said something, for example, that anyone affiliated with Larouche, you should stay away from them because Larouche decided to go to war with the left. All right, I want to pose the question to Kantbot. Who the fuck is your left, dude? What left? Don't talk to me about some abstract historical left or some historical tendency. Like, what left do you think is worth salvaging or defending that exists right now? Where is it? Please explain to me what is worthwhile about the left. And you know what he'll probably tell me? He'll probably tell me something along the lines of the baristas. Well, at least that's the nucleus of a renewed labor movement. No, it's not. The barista unionization effort is 100% going to be institutionally captured by the Democratic Party machine. I find it so fucking baffling that you can make the argument that it's going to lead to some kind of general workers' movement that's going to revive the historical left. And it's going to be this incipient spark that lights the fire, or at least has the potential to. It's such like an utter negligence of how politics and class actually works in this country. The baristas are going to turn into a Democrat-controlled craft union, like captured demographic of loyal Democratic machine operatives. That's the only fucking reason the Democrats are fully behind the unionization drives. And that's what the significance of the established unions has amounted to. He went from saying, okay, I don't mind people just trying to improve their lives personally, which was whatever. I don't think that's necessarily wrong. Or it's like a whatever thing, right? It neglected our objections and our side of the argument, but whatever. But now he's moving to this thing where it's like, there's some guy on Twitter, his name is like Abu Rejal, some fucking dumb fuck. I think it's the same dumb fuck who like had this theory that instead of patriotic socialism, which is triggering all of my leftist fucking people that I'm a cocksucker to, we're gonna have a compromise, which is Mexicanism. Such like a spineless fucking thing. The only reason you're against patriotic socialism is because you have this unwarranted charity toward the Twitter mob, and you're just assuming that if they assume some kind of fucking position, it must be there's a grain of truth in it. And my duty is to distill the grain of truth of why leftists are acting the way they do. It couldn't possibly be that leftists represent a class of social parasites to the core. Couldn't possibly be that the left as we know it was created by the Ford Foundation and like the billionaires, Soros and the Rockefellers, completely institutionally captured by academia and the rest. Could it possibly be that they're the ideological foot soldiers of the real existing bourgeoisie? No. There must be some real rational kernel defining why the fucking leftist Twitter mob behaves the way it does. And the smart people, like Abu Rejal and fucking Kantbot, are going to be here to distill that rational kernel and put it into words. I find that fucking spineless and pathetic. You're submitting to these fucking leftists in a hipsterite way, like, oh, I'm not like those leftists. I'm a critical leftist. They're running apologia for the fucking blue hair retards on Twitter who from day one have tried to deplatform and destroy infrared. And that's all there is fucking to it. They're not grounding their position in any kind of like independent use of thought or any kind of ruthless criticism that exists. They're doing it from a perspective that always already presupposes the transcendent social truth of the left and of leftists. And that's why they will always be wedded to the establishment and the status quo. I don't see it any other fucking way, right? You're going to blame Lukácsian tendencies? I'm not going to blame Lukácsian tendencies because you can be a Lukácsian who isn't a fucking cocksucker to the fucking left. I just think it's unprincipled. I mean, like, it's a matter of character and principle at this point. If you're just gonna fucking, like, be so uncharitable and hostile to us just because you want to defend the left and be accepted and part of that community, it's fucking pathetic, right? That's what I have to say. He's giving too much of benefit of the doubt to them, but to what end? Oh, guys, Larouche was bad because he was attacking the left. I'm a fellow leftist just like you guys. Yeah, dude, I'm sure they're going to invite you to their fucking Brooklyn, New York parties and shit. I'm sure they're going to invite you to all of their fucking little Chapo Trap House fucking clubs and shit. Their little fucking, I don't even know what they fucking do. Their little fucking house parties and shit. He just wants to be accepted among them, is my fucking theory. To be honest. And it really pains me to say this, and I didn't want to fucking say this shit. But it's like, I've had enough. I've had enough fucking keeping my mouth shut about it. He like accused my closest friend and colleague, Jackson, of being a Fed. Why should I let that slide? Was that fucking fair? I know Jackson personally. He's like the closest non-showrunner I'm affiliated with. That's not fucking fair. You're just gonna call people Feds? Why? Because you're fucking envious? Because Jackson's like a fucking...
Base.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate you.
We need you to break down some of the history of the Ford Foundation and Rockefeller, etc. Investment into creating
I
a
did.
synthetic
I
left.
think, Sean, I've done
Please.
that in other streams, believe it or not. I don't know if I unlisted those or if they're still on the main page, but they're there. You want to know the saddest thing of all? Kantbot hates Jackson for the same reason Destiny does. It's because he's being a fucking nerd and he sees Jackson as like the jock bully. That's literally what like Destiny said ad verbatim, but Kantbot will try and like justify the same exact reflex in so many other critical words. Oh yeah, Jackson's a Fed. Why? Because like he represents someone who bullied you in school or some shit? Get the fuck out of here, man. Grow up. I didn't fucking attack Kantbot because he's just like the nerds who fucking tattletaled on me in school and like, you know, I've always been enemies with. I didn't give a fuck about him being a nerd or anything, right? I respected him on like by virtue of the merit of his ideas and his thought. But for him, Jackson has to be fucking crucified and condemned for some fucking cultural reason that Jackson's like a jock or some shit. I don't fucking know. Oh, he calls him a grifter as well. What?
Based.
Thank you, Crystal.
Katie's
Appreciate you.
critique of Jackson was basically the same as Adorno's critique of jazz music. Anything popular is fascist.
Yeah, it's like...
Based.
Thank you, Turbo Jerk.
Every pretend socialist on Twitter has explained to me why Larouche is a Nazi organization. They all used same words like they all heard it from the same place.
Thank you, Turbo Jerk. They did hear it from the same place. Because Rev Left Radio and Donald Fartkinson did some like podcast where they fucking... You know, they created this deranged fucking theory of Larouche. This deranged conspiracy theory about Larouche, which like has gained currency amongst the entire left. But you know, it doesn't even come from them because Hassan was touting the same fucking conspiracy theory on his stream, which I believe he got from the Chapoids. And where did the Chapoids get it from? Who knows? They're handlers, most likely. Because it may come as a surprise to you guys, and it's crazy, isn't it? You know the fucking government hates LaRouche and they fucking hate the Schiller Institute? I know it's crazy. It's crazy that an organization with ties to the ties to the Russian government and the Chinese government, and which is going against every single fucking agenda that is being pushed by the deep state, is in the crosshairs of the government and the deep state. Isn't that crazy? It's so surprising that like the Schiller Institute is hated by the government and the CIA. It's so crazy, isn't it? Well, I mean, like, it's all on the surface as far as why that is. That's another thing people seem to neglect. Oh my god, LaRouche is CIA. Really? Really? You must have then you're like, you're one of those conspiracy theorists who's like, everything's a conspiracy. Freaking China's controlled opposition. Putin's controlled opposition. You're like a high-level schizo if you fucking think Schiller is glowy or they're feds. Putin works for the CIA. You know what these schizo fucking people do? They create a dogmatic theory of why they're not in power. And they'll just be like, if you weren't CIA, you would adopt my Maoist ideology. Putin works for the CIA because the real thing the CIA fears is my Maoist theory. And the reason my Maoist theory isn't in power right now is because of the CIA is preventing it from happening. That's the fucking paranoid, deranged, schizo theory, which is being parroted right now by none other than Joe Sims himself of the CPUSA, if you can fucking believe it. No, you can actually map on very easily what the government and the CIA actually fear. No, not everything's a fucking conspiracy. Yeah, Putin is an enemy of the CIA and fucking the American state. If you don't know that, I mean, like, I don't know, you're one of those conspiracy theorists who are beyond the pale. You're just beyond any fucking... You're literally schizophrenic at that point because you don't have any evidence. You're just assuming it's true because it's opposed to your ideology. The CIA doesn't care about ideologies. They don't care about your fucking little cults. They care about concrete threats to the global agenda. Whether it's in the form of Iranian Islamism, Khomeini thought, Chinese communism, Russian Orthodox revivalism, they don't give a fuck what it is. If you think they care about I mean, you know what's sad? Kantbot himself is the one who used to say this all the time. Kantbot used to be like, yeah, they don't care if you're a Rhodesian. They don't care if you're a fascist. They don't care if you're a communist. It's all one system of alignment. That was designed. And he used to say that when he used to be a Marxist and he used to be a principled person. But now Kantbot is saying that the CIA is behind the Schiller Institute. And who knows, the CIA is probably behind Infrared. And the CIA is also behind Jackson Hinkle. Because he's a Fed. I think it's pathetic, to be honest. And you know what? I will respectfully debate Kantbot on any number of these points. But I have a feeling he's going to be like, no, you're a Twitch streamer. I don't go on these dirty streamer shows. It's all fake. It's all CIA freaking... You know what this is? It's like the 30-year-old boomer problem is what it's dealing with. You know, I don't want to go there, but I'm going to fucking go there. There's something wrong with these people in their 30s. You know? It's a boomer versus zoomer war, and I'm with the fucking zoomers. Sorry. I'm not dealing with this mid-30s fucking boomer viciousness. I'm not dealing with this shit. I'm just not. Okay? It's like this thing where they think they're so pure. Oh, I'm not like one of those... No, you're all in the muck of this fucking dirt. You're not fucking pure because you're above the fucking dynamics of the attention economy and TikTok and fucking Twitch and shit. We like TikTok and Twitch and shit or whatever. And you liked fucking TV and fucking Netflix and you liked movies and you know what I mean? Like you're just an inferior level of libidinal investment. That's what defines your generation. An inferior level of libidinal investment. That's why you guys are cringe, have no swag, and have no style. You think you're above this fucking muck, and you're not. You're just fucking bitter boomers. You're no different than a fucking boomer with a fucking antenna TV yelling at the TV thinking that it's the fucking pinnacle of human progress. Sorry to tell you, there is a logic to all the things that underlined everything you treasured in life and all the things you ascribed to the status of coolness and beauty and legitimacy. All Twitch and streaming and all this fucking libidinal shit has done is extend that logic to its conclusion. You know? Like when you were in your 20s, there was a bitter fucking hipster in their 30s spitting venom at you. Can't believe me, the younger guy, has to fucking point out the wisdom of this dynamic. Oh, Zoomers. And no, you're just fucking in your 30s, dude, and you're fucking bitter about it. And it breaks my fucking heart. I always want the people older than me to be wiser, instead of people who can't cope with the fucking fact that they're aging. It's like I'm on the fence because I'm 26. So when I was growing up, I was hanging out with that generation who were the cool kids, you know, older brothers, older siblings that my friends have, and they invite us to the parties and shit. So like I'm on the fence, but I ultimately am gonna side with the fucking Zoomers over these millennials. I can't stand millennials, honestly. I just hate this arrogance, though. Like, oh yeah, I'm above it all. This is all just a grift bullshit. No, you're not, dude. You're not above this libidinal fucking dynamics at all. You're not. You're just as much determined and beholden by it as anyone else. You're not pure. You're dirty like the rest of us. You're just arrogant about it and smug about it. And you know what? Fuck, I'm going to say, I've been holding back so much, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about Kantbot. But here's the thing. He acts like so high and mighty, like he's above all of these like bullshit libidinal, hyper libidinalized fucking manipulated dynamic, because it's all CIA, MK Ultra manipulating everything, right? But then I can easily see with him how he is directly determined by the social pressures around him on Twitter. I feel like the reason he was even friendly to me in the first place is because I kept praising him and saying how much I liked him. But if I said I didn't like him, he would dismiss me as a fucking dirty Twitch streamer right off the beginning. So it's like he's beholden by the same shallow and superficial libidinal social dynamics as anyone else that he judges for. You know? I bet you after this, he's gonna fucking start attacking the shit out of me and all this. I don't give a fuck. He's beholden by the same processes that he claims to have elevated above because he's cracked the code of the transcendental critique or whatever, transcendental method that elevates him above all of the pathological forces that veer us into these directions. He's ethical and not pathological, except, and this actually is Hegel's critique of Kant, believe it if you can believe it. Kant thinks he overcomes the pathological with the ethical, but what Kant actually, or the moral, I should say, but what Kant actually does is create a new outlet and avenue for the pathological. And Hegel writes about the fact that Kant neglects to mention, for example, when it comes to the categorical imperative, what if you enjoy it? Are you really doing it because of the categorical imperative, or are you doing it because you enjoy it? So the pathology comes back in the form of this disguise that morality gives for the pathos. And I think the same thing is going on for Kantbot. Same exact thing. He is beholden to the same pathological forces that he's so willing to point out, motivate the rest of us. And he disguises that with some kind of pretension to being supremely ethical or moral. But look, at the end of the day, it's not personal. Still, well, it's personal in the sense of being a disappointment to me. But I'm only saying this shit because it's like he came after Jackson, and it's like I don't know. I just don't dogpile him and don't go after him and attack him or anything. It's super cringe. But it's like if you want to know why we're no longer friends with Kantbot, that's why. I'm not going to say it again. Not going to say it again, okay? So, okay, with that being said, we don't really have a lot of time, actually. Fuck. Yeah, we don't have a lot of time left. But, I want to talk about what's going on with the CPUSA, because there's quite a bit, actually. If you can believe it. There's quite a bit going on with the CPUSA right now. And, wow, what the fuck? So, Joe Sims, I'm going to read it to you right now. Speaking of it's a good segue, actually, into the fucking Larouche derangement paranoia. But Joe Sims has recently issued a statement. I'm going to read it here. So Joe and Rossana came to a club because of stuff going on in the club. And they passed out these pamphlets and verbally explained infrared Larouche / Maupin threat. So I'm going to skip a lot. So they've been grilling people on questions like, do you or do you not believe in feminism and LGBT rights are inherent to the struggle for communism? So in the same way McCarthy asked people, have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? The Communist Party is now grilling people with their own McCarthyism, telling people, do you or do you not believe feminism and LGBT rights are inherent to the struggle for communism? So they said they said, so Joe Sims gave a passionate screed at one of these clubs, claiming that infrared was racist. And they yelled about how the Schiller Institute had a conference this weekend and that Haas was there, and that they're controlled by the CIA through Larouche, who is actually dead, to destroy the CPUSA. Because what the CIA is now prioritizing, according to this dumb fuck Joe Sims, is preventing the CPUSA from no longer voting for Democrats. The CIA is terrified of that. If the CPUSA stopped voting for Democrats, if the CPUSA votes for Democrats this midterms, the CIA will be terrified. So the CIA is trying to stop this weddedness the party has to the Democratic Party. And that's what Joe Sims is actually trying to sell people. Because he's a fucking fraud and a piece of shit. And actually, a little bird told me, shout out if you know the CPUSA intelligence group that has emerged on Twitter, that actually I haven't been presented with it yet, but when I am, I'm going to go fully public with it. Apparently, there's concrete evidence that the CPUSA is being controlled by a handful of corporations, Democratic Party operatives, and the rest. So, watch out for that. But I am no longer convinced that Joe Sims is engaging in his fucking disgusting behavior out of sincerity. I am 100% convinced these are feds. They are doing this for an ulterior motive that they are not making transparent through their blatantly absurd reasoning. They have hidden motives, and those hidden motives probably relate to the ties that they fucking have to the feds. And notice, every time I've gone after the CPUSA, a huge campaign starts on Twitter against infrared. Every single time. When they first announced infrared, that's when all the fucking leftist bots started swarming me. There's something that really glows about the CPUSA. Because every time I touch upon that fucking subject, some weird shit happens. Like on Twitter or on social media, where there's like this new campaign of vilification and slander against infrared. Every single time. It happens every single fucking time I do it. Every single fucking time. And I've started to notice that.
Based.
Thank you, Winnie.
I listened to True Anon's latest podcast and they were bashing you and Jackson super hard. Calling you guys ridiculous for trying to unite working class people. Immediate red flag.
I don't care. True Anon are retards. And I wipe my ass with them. I literally physically grab them, crumple them into a piece of paper, and I will wipe my ass with them, put it in the toilet, and flush it down. I don't care about what they have to. I don't even know who that is. But I'm sure they wear glasses. Am I right? Do they wear glasses? I'm sure they do. I'm pretty sure they wear glasses, don't they? They do, don't they? Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Don't they wear glasses? I don't know who it is, but I'm sure they wear glasses, don't they? Yup, they do. I always got it. I always got it. Always got it. I always got it. Always got it. Yeah. See, I already know the image of, it's like some hipster with glasses, right? I don't give a, they can suck my cock. Just suck my fat cock. Yeah. So anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, so Joe Sims is like scared shitless. And that's what the intelligence committee is telling us. They're like, they're really scared because they have no way of countering your CPUSA 2036 strategy. And the thing is, that strategy is going to be brought to fruition with a brand new one, which I think Jehu is also on board with, which is so fucking based, right? So fucking based. That makes me so happy because I'm a fan of Jehu. You can believe it. I've always been a fan. So a bunch of people are making CPUSA chapter accounts as the real CPUSA, and they're denouncing all the older CPUSA accounts as impersonations, which is true. And if you think about it, if you grow these accounts and you get them huge followings, who's the real CPUSA? We control the narrative. We control the fucking message. Joe Sims is shitting his pants over this, by the way. We control the fucking narrative and we control the fucking message. Let's take back our fucking party. Let's take back our fucking party. How about we do that? Follow those accounts. They're rapidly growing. And we're going to take back our fucking party and free it from the clutches of those fucking Democrats. We're going to take back our party. We are. They can't stop us. There's nothing they can do. All political parties on the internet are downstream from social media. That's why every leftist knows who Haas is. Not everyone knows who fucking Taryn Fivek is. Everything's downstream from social media. She's a fucking parasite who fucking burrowed her fucking way into the CPUSA leadership because there's a confluence of goals. We're going to take over CPUSA. And I'm officially announcing this new project. It's called Project RedAnon. And it basically means communists in control. Thank you, Christopher.
I just got my lame CPUSA membership
Beautiful.
card yesterday, lol.
Beautiful. There's a rogue faction that is supposedly in the National Committee of the CPUSA at the highest levels of leadership. And supposedly these guys are hardcore Stalinists who want to free the CPUSA from the Democrats, and they want to work with Infrared to fulfill that ends. Hardcore Stalinists, formed in 2013. And they're covertly working to help Infrared and bring back the Communist Party. And they've got like a few people in the National Committee, apparently. Oh man, this is interesting. Oh man, it's a rogue faction of patriots in the CPUSA deep state that are now willing to work with Infrared to bring down and overthrow the revisionist traitors that now rule the CPUSA. Now, when did CPUSA forfeit the right to control their own social medias? Isn't this like unprincipled and like wrong to do? No, it's not wrong to do. It's not wrong to do. Because they fucking lied so much about me. They lied. They're liars. They slandered me. They fucking lied. They continue to lie. So all this stuff about honesty should suck a dick. We're taking over. The real CPUSA would never be a whore for the fucking Democrats. The real CPUSA would never sell out to the Democrats. So that's not the real CPUSA. The real one, you can follow them on Twitter. Could it be a Fed op? I don't give a fuck. No, it's not. No, the real Fed op is when Joe Sims tells people to vote Democrat. That's the real Fed op. We're taking over the CPUSA. Operation RedAnon is in motion. Patriots in control of the National Committee. In secret. It's happening. It's happening. I wanted to share that with you. It's happening. And this is fully in tandem with the MAGA communism campaign. We're going to do it. We're going to take back our party. And when we take back that party, the MAGA communism train is going to fully take off and unleash. Everything's downstream from social media. So if you make the real CPUSA on social, this is the beauty of hyperstitions. This is the beauty of post-structuralist French theory, Deleuze. Make the virtual thing first, the actual will follow. See? CPUSA, the projection of what it should be, virtually, will mold it in the right direction. As a hyperstition. They're not even on our level, dude. We're like fucking crazy people, alright? We're like Nick Land. We're using the fucking pneumogram to take it over. Show Joe Sims the pneumogram. I bet his head will be spinning. Joe Sims, we are dark magicians. We're like dark sorcerers and shit. You're not even on our level, dude. We read Jehu. We read Jehu, Joe Sims. You fucking read fucking Kamala Harris or some shit. You're not on our level, dude. You watch fucking Rachel Maddow or some shit. We're fucking using Lemurian time magic to take over the party. Yes, the schizos are rising. Yes, the schizos are rising. There's nothing they can do. You think Rossana knows about fucking hyperstitions? You think Rossana could read xenosystems.net? You think Rossana knows about fucking Fanged Numina or some shit? You think they know anything about that stuff? You think fucking Joe Sims knows what a Lemurian is? No, he doesn't. They're nowhere on our level. They're nowhere close to us. You think Jehu knows about of course he does. You think Joe Sims knows about Jehu? You think Joe Sims knows about free time and nothing else? You think he really knows about that shit? He doesn't. He'd be confused and discombobulated because he's a Fed and he's a Democrat agent. He's got one fucking goal, and it's just to herd these idiots in the party to voting Democrat. They're nowhere near. You think Taryn can go toe-to-toe with us in a debate? She can't. They're nowhere near our level. We're using literal time travel to take over the party. Thank you, Matt. We are using time travel to take over the CPUSA. This new campaign of creating real CPUSA accounts to take over the real one, it's time travel. And they can't even foresee it. They don't even see it coming because they're stupid boomers. This is deep Sufi Islamic time magic. And they have nothing. They can't do shit. What are they going to do? Nothing. Joe Sims has nothing. Hey, Joe Sims, the magma movement is coming. He calls it the magma movement because it's like magma and it's taking everything. It's coming from underground and it's taking out. Yeah, this is the magma movement. And let's do hashtag magma movement. Magma movement. Let's do that. Magma communism. Tell Ed Berg about it too because it's literal fucking geology. Magma communism. Fucking Joe Sims started it, and we're finishing it. Joe Sims is the one who created that superstition, and we're finishing it. Guys, make art. Don't even make a hashtag. Just make magma art. Like, do magma, and then put my face as like put like a shadow of my face, and then magma coming out, and say Joe Sims, we are coming on it, and make that poster. Someone make that poster. Someone make like an infrared magma menacing poster for Joe Sims. We are in your party like magma. We're coming from underground and taking everything over. Alright? Anyway, guys, I want to stream longer. I do, but I can't. I will stream tomorrow. Much longer, like 6-hour stream, okay? Anyway, guys, there's one thing Joe Sims gets right about why our strategy is going to fail. And the one thing